So let me brief that again for you. And I started the recording for all of you to have the glance after the classes as well to cope up with the same, like the practical works and each and every theoretical portion being delivered by me in this session. So in this session, we will have an introduction to basic electronics as well as we will have a different understanding of different sensor present in the market, and we will see different how different electronic component works, and also we will discuss the series and parallel connection in details, and we will learn about different aspects of electricity like the voltage, current, and the resistance through the Ohm's law. Yes, and we will explore some of the sensor types as well as we will distinguish between the passive and active sensor, which will help you understand which sensor to choose while going for any practical classes in your classroom program, and we will end with the conclusion and assignment. So yes, on the day one, I did not give you the assignment only because the theoretical part were covered on that session. But in this, I will mention some of the practical stuff as well. So the submission of assignment will be done, and the team of Exceed Academy and Exceed Robotics will help you to like submit the assignment in the portal itself. But I believe each and every member got the access of our LMS system, and there is no issue in that. In case if you do have any issue, then ping separately in the WhatsApp group, which we created for you to help you out understand the concept more precisely. So let's start this journey by by the general introduction of basic electronic components, and then we will have a complete understanding of sensors and what sensor to use in our classroom program, and even though to build some of the good sensors. So as you know, first of all, let's understand why we need electronic components or the basic components in our STEM, robotics, and AI classes. As I mentioned earlier, that I will focus more on the innovation oriented classes rather than going for the DIY stuff. And we, as a teacher, from each and every place you are, you will know how it is important for our children to have the core knowledge rather than being dependent on DIY stuff, which lead them their career to become the DIY assemblers, not the innovators. So we have to like bring out the creativity inside of them, and by saying this word like bringing creativity of from their side means they can idealize something in their mind. The major concept of utilizing these STEM classes, like implementing these STEM classes in our classroom, is to help the student understand the concept practically while doing the things, right? So basically the reason to introduce these, because if they idealize some of the key components, like if they want to build some of the good projects, and though they go through the internet search, and through the internet search you will find only the information which are readily available, not the advanced version or not the information up to the research level. So you will find difficulty in your classroom program while having the DIY kits. But learning these components and the application of these components will help you further develop several projects out of nothing, like out of scratch. So the basic components of robotics we are going to use in this segment as well as in our classes are like resistors, capacitors, light emitting diode, transistors, inductors, integrated circuits, and circuit breakers. Apart from the circuit breakers, what we do have is the fuse, switch, transformers, electrical wires, and power cables. Obviously, the battery to utilize the like stored version of electricity in our project, as well as relay and motors. So these are the few basic components, like 14 in total. Sorry. So these are the few components which we are going to utilize in our classroom program. So as you already know about the resistors, maybe you already heard, or let me explain a little bit about it so that it will be great for you to understand the concept of like where we can utilize the resistor and what is the reason we do have resistor. Anyone does have any answer like why we need resistors in an electrical circuit? Anyone from the teacher side? I love to have some of the answers from your side as well. As I already asked that this session will be of like more on collaborative mode and interactive mode. So it will be great if you come up with your answer. Yes, Fatima ma'am said to balance the current flow. That's perfect, ma'am. Thank you so much for your answer. Anyone else? Any idea like why we need to have this? Yeah, to regulate current. Yeah, we can say that to regulate current, but no, that's not the correct answer. So yeah, register allow us to have a voltage across it, control the, yes, please. Okay, fine. So yes, register allow us to have a voltage across it and control the value. Okay, let me explain you in using basic terms what you see in your household, in your daily life or in your household itself. So if I take the example of a pipe, and this is a simple pipe through which water flows from point A to point B, right? Each and every one person had seen this or have seen this kind of arrangement in our home, from the hose to the outlet, right? This one is the inlet of pipe and this one is the outlet of pipe. So water will flow across point A to point B at certain point of time. So water is in this case is flowing smoothly. There is no no extra burden on the water flow of water, right? Because it will only, the burden in here is only about the resistance, or we can call it as the friction between, I'm using the technical term to help you understand the concept. So in this scenario, what we do have is the frictional loss. Whenever water is touching the surface of pipe, it causes a loss in friction, loss due to friction, and also it reduces the exact it reduces the exact amount of flow, right? It reduces the amount of flow, like the speed of flow, and we can call it as like overall flow of water. So in this case, the water is flowing freely, but it does have some of the resistance to flow from the pipe itself. But that's a negligible, because without friction, we cannot able to walk in the earth's surface, right? So we need to have some of the frictions in our daily lives to help us achieve some of the tasks. Either way, we cannot able to grab any component itself without the help of friction. So friction is required, but in this case it is reducing the amount of flow. So suppose if I give you another example, if I take the consideration of electricity. So what is electricity in total? Like anyone do have any idea? Anyone do have any idea about like what is electricity? Maybe you all went through the basic concept of electricity before, and how we can able to define electricity in simple words. Anyone from the teacher side? Bobby Ma'ams mentioned that to reduce the speed of electron. Yes, ma'am. That's the perfect answer I wanted to see from your side. Yes. And Mahmoud Hassan and Fatima Sheikh ma'am said that flow of electron. Electricity is basically about the flow of electron. Means whenever we consider the electricity, it means if we do have any of the conductor with us, conductor means any wire or any metals which can conduct the electricity, we call those things as conductors. Means there will be flow of electron inside of it, right? The flow of electron will be there inside of it. So what we are saying, it is this similar example compared, if we compare these two things like the pipe system in our home as well as the electricity, the flow of electricity is almost same. But the thing here, in pipe situation, what we do have water as to help the flow of things, like we do have the application of water inside of it. But in electricity, we can call it as the flow of electron in an electrical conductor is known as electricity. So in here, what we are trying to achieve, we are delivering the electron at point A and we are achieving the same At point B, yes, there will be losses in here as well, but in this case, we will have the heat loss due to friction, right? This is the general concept in electricity. But what I'm trying to explain, suppose if I take one of the example, like this one, the pipe itself, and if we try, the water is flowing freely inside of it, right? The water is flowing freely from point A to point B. If I try to like grab the pipe and hold the pipe in mid between, then what will happen? If I hold the pipe in mid between, then what will happen? What will affected by the compression in there?
It blocks the flow of water.
It will stop, or it will reduce the flow of water, right? Its speed will be reduced. So
Mm.
similar thing, we can take the example of the resistor in our electrical circuit. Yes, Pavi ma'am. That's a great answer. Speed will reduce. So in an electrical circuit, how we represent resistors using this symbol, right? This symbol we do use for register, and the basics letter we use to address register is R. So what is happening in the register? Suppose in one wire we do have is this, like point A to point B, and another wire we do have point C to point D. Suppose we are supplying 12 volt in this wire, and if we add one of the register in this one, suppose of any values, so what it will do, it won't, it the value reached at the point D will be less than 12 volt, right? It depends on the amount of resistance we applied in this segment, right? So it will be less than 12 volt, but not exactly the 12 volt. It will always be less than 12 volt in total. So basically what resistor does in our electrical circuit, resistor controls the flow of electricity, or the potential, we can say that potential in our PR sir said that the content that you are showing now, is it there in the LMS content provided to us? Yes, it will be reflected after the classroom program. So today's the time when we will conclude this session for today, you will have the access to those content as well, which I am showing it to you throughout the classroom. Yes, and we will discuss that in the end of this session. Let's focus on the register part itself, then we'll proceed further. Otherwise, we will lose time in between those discussions, right? So, so the responsibility of register is to reduce the voltage, overall voltage. We do not talk about the the current value in here, but we only discuss about the voltage or potential. Both terms are similar. There is no difference between the voltage and the potential, or the register resistance of a register is denoted by the value R, and the unit of resistance is ohm. OHM, ohm. So you must remember this term, because we are going to utilize the Ohm's law in our next chapter after this sensor and all electronic components, so that it will be useful for you guys to like calculate the exact amount of current needed to run the electronic component, or needed to like power up your robotics devices. So if we try to tear down the values, and if we choose the adapters or the power source on a random basis, then what will happen? It will burn out your board you are working with, either the microcontrollers or any accessories you do have with you for the robotics. It will burn out those things in a some specific point of time. So you should take care of these values, and this is why the register is important in the development of robotics and AI stuff, like the hardware part and the boards for it. So the scenarios are very simple. If without register, the 12 volt will be supplied to the end of this section in point D, and with register it will be less than 12 volt in total at the end of this wiring itself. So now what we do have, I hope you understood the concept of resistor and resistance, and why we need those in our circuit as well. So I do have one more thing with me. Not one more. I do have many electronic component in this, but let's focus on capacitor first, and we will proceed with the other electronic. component as well. So you already maybe heard of this capacitor, and it is almost available in each and every circuit, right? So anyone do have any idea about like why we need capacitors in the electrical circuit itself? Why the capacitor was required in the development of the circuitries, even though the board you are going to purchase, like the Arduino, they do have the to hold the charge, to store charge. Yeah, perfect. We already seen some of the concept of mechanical designs. In mechanical designs like the generators, you see it does have one specific thing like the flywheel. And why we do have flywheel in the generator is to maintain the constant speed or maintain the speed. So even though the engine is fluctuating in generators, the flywheel is responsible to maintain the constant speed throughout, right? Similar thing happens in the like in the generator. Concept of generator is all about mechanical, but if we talk about the electrical stuff, the same concept goes with the capacitor as well. Capacitor are known as the keepers of charge, or it is used to store the charge in an electrical circuit. So whenever any fluctuation, because fluctuation happens, like we all know, in our home we are often supplied with the AC current, right? And it does have some of the frequencies to like operate, and AC current do have some of the frequency. If you look closely to any of the bulb or electronic appliances, you can see the fluctuation in energy in all time, right? So to reduce that fluctuation, what we utilize in our home is the stabilizer. And stabilizer is responsible to reduce the fluctuation in our home. And the major reason to for the damage of any electronic components or appliances is this, the fluctuation itself. So we need to stop the fluctuation, and sometime if we cannot able to stop the fluctuation, then what we will do, we will utilize the concept of capacitor and how to stabilize the overall graph for the electrical signal to reduce the fluctuation to some of extent where the components or the electronic part won't get damaged. So this is why we need to have capacitor in electrical circuit. It the uses of capacitor is to store the electricity in the circuit itself, and also through the capacitor, because we do have various kind of capacitor with us, so we can able to generate the polarity while converting the AC to DC voltage or DC current, AC to DC current. So alternating current to DC current, we need to use the rectifier system, and rectifier is nothing but a combination of diode plus capacitor. So through that, the combination of diode capacitor forms the rectifier module, and you need those rectifier modules in your robotics project to convert some of the AC currents directly to the desired voltage. Suppose if you do have the AC voltage 220 volt to 230 volt, and if you want to step down it a little bit, if you would like to achieve 75 volt DC, then you have to use the combination of the diode and capacitor to convert AC to DC. But apart from the voltage conversion, we will use some of these step down modules, or even though we can able to utilize the transformer for this application. And transformer is mainly used to step down and step up the voltage as per our need. And in this series we can also utilize some of the transistors, which we will discuss in few minutes, and it will help you to build certain concept how to utilize the basic electronic components to build some of the robotic system. So this is all about the capacitor, and basically you have to remember the capacitor is used to diode bridge and capacitors. Yes, in comments. I mean, sir, yes. So in using the capacitor is the reason why we are using the capacitor in our electrical circuit is to store the electrical charge in them and also to smooth out the fluctuation. This is the major reason we are utilizing capacitor in our electrical circuit or development of circuitry for our robotics and robots and other required electronic parts. So now what we do have is the light emitting diode, and I believe each and every person do have idea about light emitting diode because it is available nowadays almost everywhere. Even though the mobile you are using, if you are connected through your mobile phone and through the laptop, if you are connected, then the screen itself does have a like large number of dots in it, and we call it as the pixels. And pixels are operated by the LEDs mounted on surface, and these type of LED we call it as SMD form or surface mounted diodes, and they combinedly forms each and every pixel in our LCD. And also many electronic gadgets and each and every electronic device does have LED in it, and the main reason why we are utilizing LED is to generate some of the outputs. And remember, as I mentioned earlier, robotics does require three things to operate. First one is the input device, second one is the brain, and third one is the output device. So output device is mainly responsible in robotics to generate locomotion or actuation. But in some of the case we can also able to generate a specific kind of outputs, like you like generating some of the lights and the sound using the buzzers and all the alarm and all to inform the human being that something is happening. You should know about these terms. So these are the basic key concept utilizing the LED, and the full form of LED is light emitting diode. So LED is one of the type of diode in which whenever we apply some of the potentials, and by the term potential I mean the two polarities, the positive and negative ones. So if we apply these two polarities in any of the LED, then what will happen? It will start lighting like throwing the light in the outside world, or it will start emitting the light to the outer world for our visual confirmation or visual like visual data coming out from the as in the form of output from the robotics body. So light emitting diode, we are going to utilize these for almost uh, like 70% of our project to generate some of the specific kind of light signals. Even though the project we will do throughout the journey, like the traffic light as well as the police siren and alarm system. So those project are the LEDs is also going to be utilized in those terms. So on other hand, what we do have is the pair of different transistors. So maybe you already heard of this term before and do have basic idea. Yes, Amin sir, you mentioned transistor is your basic amplifier and a switch. That's perfect answer, sir. Nice of you to like answer this. So anyone do have any idea about like why we need transistors in our electrical circuit? Apart from the amplification and to switch, is there any other scope of uses for this particular electronic component? Anyone? Okay, so we can utilize transistors for almost three basic purposes. Three basic purposes again. So first one is obviously, yeah, the Swati ma'am said, control the flow of current and electronic switch. Yes, Mohammed Hassan sir, yes. That's the exact thing I was looking for to have from your side, like electronic switch. That's the main reason we utilize transistor in our electric circuit. And Swati ma'am, yes, you are technically correct. The control the flow of current, technically you are correct, but we cannot directly say that we can able to control the flow of current using this device. There is some basic rules utilizing these electronic components. First one is we can able to utilize transistors to amplify, that is for sure, for the amplification purposes we can able to utilize transistors. Second is the switching. We can also use transistor as a switch in our electrical circuit, in an electrical circuit. And third one is the reducer or step down the voltage. So both things can be achieved using the transistor. One is the amplification, and second one is to step down the voltage. And third one is obvious, the switching, because in our previously made computers, or even though now also the microprocessor in the computer itself does have billions of transistor aligned in certain way to produce the logical outputs, that is known as the gates and all, right? So we can able to utilize transistor to do the amplification. That is the major reason we do have transistors. And the second reasons, the most important one, is the switching the circuitry on and off. And by the term switching, I only mean turning something on and off. So we can also utilize the transistor to turn something on and off at certain durations, for certain duration at some point of time. And the amplification can be done to step up the voltage or any electrical signals. So if whenever we need to like amplify the voltage or electrical signals, we can also able to utilize the transistor. But let me tell you one more important aspect of these in our STEM and robotics classes is the step down. And by the term is step down, suppose if you do have the 12-volt adapter with you, I'm just giving you one examples to help you understand why we need to step down the voltage at some extent. Because the microcontroller we are going to utilize the, like for example, if you take the Arduino, so Arduino does not works on 12 volt. Technically, it does not works on 12. So what I'm trying to say, Arduino does have one of the microcontroller chip in it, right? And any ICs or microcontroller does work on 5 volt and 3.3 volt. There is no way we can utilize the 12 volt directly to power up our microcontroller and to achieve the same through the 12-volt voltage. Okay, so what we need to do is to convert the 12 volt to 5 volt for further application. So in Arduino we do have several transistors to reduce the voltage to the useful one. Like the board can able to like reduce the voltage you have by the help of these transistors, like 7805. And 7805 is also known as voltage regulator. And I will love to hear the answer, which transistor is responsible to convert the 5 volt to 3.3 volt. If you do have any idea, then please help me with your answer. Otherwise, that will be the question for your assignment today. Anyone do have any idea like how we can able to convert 12 volt to 3.3 volt or 5 volt to 3.3 volt? Using which type of transistor and the number of it? Go and Google it out. So you will get to know different things using normal Google search.
Is it step up and step down?
Sorry, ma'am, your voice is too low.
Is it step up and step down?
That is only for the step down purposes. This particular 7805 is the voltage regulator, and using this transistor, we can only able to step down the voltage. For a step up, we do have other transistors and like PNP type of transistor for the amplification purposes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So using this 7805, yes, let me give you the example of amplification as well to help you understand the concept. We can able to utilize 2 and 2222 or BC 547 548. These are the NPN type of transistor and can be used to further amplify the signals. So one project I made using the BC547 earlier in my classroom, early in my classroom program, that was the application of to detect the uh, electrical signals and the electrical faults, electricity fault in the wiring itself. So BC547 is one of the good amplification example of transistor for the amplification purposes. And here what we do have 7805, which can be used to regulate the voltage. And whenever we apply 12 volt or 20 volt to this transistor, it will always give us the value of 5 volt in return. So we can utilize several combination of transistors to achieve the voltage requirement in our electrical circuit. And that is important for you to know, because you have to power up some of the devices independently from the adapter itself at some point of time. Suppose if you are going to use servo motors in your application, then you cannot able to like drive 6 or 8 pieces of servo using the Arduino board. You have to utilize some of the uh, transistor or the IC based regulators or the controllers, we can call it as controllers, to help you maintain the proper energy flow like the current and voltage to power up the heavy output devices. So these things is important, and we can also we are utilizing the transistor for these purposes. So first one is the amplification, second one is as a switch, and third one is to step down the voltage as per our requirement in the electrical circuits. So let's move ahead with the other topic as well. I hope you all understood the concept of transistor. And yes, sir. Amin Sophie sir mentioned BJT transistor. Yes, and I'm not explaining much more about the transistor because you are going to have the assignment for the same. So if you complete the assignment part, yes, you will become the master of the transistor and all other stuff I mentioned. I'm mentioning in my classroom program. Yes, also transistor starts with the number 78, 79 and finish with 2 digit indicating the output voltage. Yes, sir. 7805, that's perfect answer I was seeking from you guys. So 7805 stands for 78 is the primary number to indicate it is voltage regulator or company prefix, we can say, and 05 is the output voltage we are going to get from these transistor upon using this. So some of the basic thing you can see and correlate with the same. Yeah, 7805V 7 comes with the other suffix as well, CV, and other we do have many suffix and prefix for the same. So you just have to remember these 4 numerical values, and you are good to go with the transistor itself. Apart from the suffix and prefix, we do have a variety of suffix and prefix, and that only comes because of different manufacturer do exist in this world. So now what we do have is, okay, one more. Yeah, 78 positive output, 79 negative output. Yes, correct, sir. You are perfectly right. So 78 is for the regulating and 79 is for amp, we can say, the negative output. So we'll discuss it after the completion of assignment. I will explain this term in very deep details so that it will be helpful for you to understand more about the transistor and different electronic components. So now what we do have is the inductors. Inductors are similar to the transformer we do see in our day-to-day life. And like the transistors, unlike transistors though, inductors are essentially coil of wire that is wound up in the solid iron core, or we can say that solid or soft iron core. So these the small inductors, the small in size, inductors are available in a small in size, and they are used to do the amplification in electrical circuit of all electronic component mentioned. on this page, you most likely not use inductors for basic circuitry design unless depending on the particular project. Yeah, some of the project, why I'm showing you the indicator, because in some of the project I utilize the application of inductors. As suppose if you are working on sustainable model or you are going for the green energy stuff. So if we talk about the wind energy, if we talk about the wind energy, through the application of wind energy, a normal propeller set or normal fan you do see in your computer can able to generate 2 volt in total. The potential value will be 2 volt at high RPM, approximately around 2000 plus RPM. It can only able to generate 2 volt or maximum of 5 volt. But to utilize the same voltage for other application like to charge the LiPo battery or Li-ion battery, you need to step up the voltage, and at the same time you will not have the options to like do it through the transistor or the transformer, because those things are not capable to convert each and everything. Like if in case you will get high voltage capacity means reduce current capacity, so these things will be correlated, and sometimes we have to utilize the inductors in our application to like increase the voltage at some extent. And yes, I will show you the examples of how and where we are going to utilize the inductors in our electrical circuit. And yes, Sivaranjani ma'am said very well, for filtering the noise in electrical circuit, yes, inductors are used. I will show you the example of that one as well in the practical project throughout this session. And by mean practical project, I will utilize the inductors to further filter out the noises in electrical circuit as well as to reduce the deflections in the output in the circuit itself. So remember the term, yeah, sorry. So remember the term, the integrated circuitry came to existence, and it gave us the wide flexibility to build some of the electronic gadget in this smaller in size. Earlier, the computers were like were kept in the room, like in a big rooms with the AC and proper ventilations. But the day the ICs came into the existence, everything got smaller. So integrated circuit is like combination of different ton of transistors, registers, and as well as the transistor at some point using the logical gates. So those things combinedly forms the integrated circuit. So we can also see the Arduino does have one of the IC named as Atmega 328, either the PU version or U version or P version. There are different variety of the chipset itself. So these chipset are known as microcontroller in the Arduino board. And on other hand, what we can say, this is one of the IC which does have these capability, EEPROMs. So electronically erasable programmable memories. So we can able to utilize different kind of EEPROMs at IC. Suppose if you have to build some of the electronic project or the robotics project in which you do have some of the fixed output. So on that case, we are not going to use the programmable version of IC, that is the microcontroller. We can call it as microcontroller. We are going to utilize some of the analog type of ICs for those application in which we do have the fixed output, or where the output is not negotiable or not changeable in point of time. So we can also able to utilize some of the ICs integrated circuit in our application of robotics and automation. So it will be helpful for you to choose from the wide range of ICs available in the market. Otherwise, what will happen if you go for a simple buzzer kind of project, then you have to pay like 450 or 500 something depending on which country you are in. So you have to pay some of the amounts for the development board, and that development board will be fixed on the project for rest of the time, right? So on that case, the complete because whenever we try to design some of the system, we think of the proper we think in terms of efficient system and in consuming less of money and effective system, right? So in terms of money, we have to pay more for the microcontroller. That is the reason we are going to utilize the integrated circuit or some of the ICs in our project to help us achieve that task without paying higher price in total. So as you well know, after the IC, we do have circuit breaker and fuse. But in robotics thing, we cannot able to accommodate this circuit breaker. But yes, there is some way to utilize the programming to do that task for us. Programming in microcontroller, we can able to achieve the concept of circuit breaker whenever something short circuits, like short circuit happens inside the electronic wiring or the output devices. So the similar thing, the approach we will take through the programming itself in microcontroller. And as the circuit breaker is vital mechanical switching device that protects your electronic components or equipments during from the short circuits or power surges. Similarly, we will utilize our programming skill in the microcontroller itself to prevent these kind of things happening in the circuitry. But yes, you have to accommodate the fuse if you are dealing with high voltage and current in your electronic circuit, because fuse will make sure that the things like the equipment or the circuitry won't get heated up or damaged by the application of the electricity itself. So it will prevent the disaster in between, and you should utilize the same in your classes to like help a student not lose any of the high cost value products throughout the session. So both you already seen some of the varieties of fuse available in the market, but preferably in the small electronic part, we see the tube like structure in which one glass cylindrical tube is there and a thin wire is inside of it, and we will have two of the terminals to connect it to any of the input source, as well as one terminal to the circuitry or output source. So this is the basic, and if you search through the internet, you will find plentiful of examples of these kind of fuses available for the small circuitry which we are going to utilize in our classroom program. So it will prevent the disaster in between, and you must follow the procedure to utilize these in your conventional practical projects. Otherwise you will lose many of the components throughout the STEM and robotics classes. And yes, after the fuse, what we do have is the category of different switches. Yeah, fuse is the protection equipment. That's correct, sir. So after the fuse, what we do have is the switch, and switch are mainly responsible to generate outputs, right? Switch are responsible to generate outputs for the microcontroller, and we take it as the input from the environment, right? This is the input, this is the method where we can able to provide the input from the environment, where a human or any person or any automated process can provide the input to the microcontroller, or to output, not the output to the microcontroller, but the input to the microcontrollers through the application. So in our home, we can able to find there is a plentiful of switches, which is always be used to turn on and turn off the device. So basic reason to use this switch in an electronic appliances or in electrical circuit to turn on the circuitry and turn off the circuitry. That is the major concept, and we will explore some of the basic switches we can able to utilize in robotics journey. That is the SPST, SPDT, DPST, and DPDT, and the complete details will be followed by different classes, different groupings as well and classes, even though you will get some of the questions for your assignment from these sections as well, so that it will be great the time you will complete your assignment and submit it. And in our next classes, I will explain each and everything in details. So after this switch, what we do have is the is the electric powers and electrical wires and power cables. And why electrical wires and power cables does have a great impact in our development? Because we cannot able to flow the water like 10, we can able to flow, suppose if we can able to let the 10 liter of water flow from this pipe from the point A to point B at some particular point of time, then it is not possible for us to flow the same like more amount of water through the same pipe at the same time. The time will change, and also we cannot able to force this much of quantity using the same pipeline system. So where the place where more water is needed to flow, we utilize more thinner cross-sectional pipe in it, right? We utilize more thicker cross-sectional diameter for the pipe itself. But where the water is required less to supply from the pipe flow, we utilizes the thinner cross-sectional area compared to the higher requirement on other side. Similarly, in an electrical circuit, whenever we consider the wires, so to wire up the LED, we will utilize 1 mm of like 1 mm or 0.6 mm of wire, and I will explain it throughout the journey as we will involve ourselves in the practical classes. So yeah, anyone from the audience side? No? Okay. So what we can do is to utilize different diameters of pipe or different diameters of wires, or we can call it as cross-sectional diameter of wires for different applications in our electrical circuits. So to operate the high-end motors, we cannot able to go with these 0.6 mm or 1 mm diameter wires. To operate these motors, we require at least 2 mm to 3 mm, depending on the capacity, the wattage, how much watt it is supplying on regular basis, and also what are the power consumptions, and also it is dependent on the potential we are utilizing in our electrical circuit. Suppose if we are dealing with 12 volt but only at 1 ampere of current, then yes, 1 mm diameter of wire will work fine on that electrical circuit. But if we increase the if we again limit the voltage, but if we increase the amount of current flowing through it, then we have to increase the diameter in here, as well as whenever we deal with more of the values like 110 volt or something like that, then we have to choose the wire diameter accordingly. And I will explain you how to calculate the wire diameters and what are the specific wires we can able to use in our day-to-day robotics practical projects. Otherwise, what will happen? The wire, the more we try to flow the electron from the thinner wire, it will increase the friction between the wire and the conduct between the electron and the conductor, because electricity is all about flow of electron in a conductor. So the more flow of electron in a conductor will cause more friction to develop, as well as it will increase the amount of heat in the wire itself. Resistivity is smaller with large diameter cables. Yes, sir, you are absolutely correct. So it will increase the heat, and also if the heat will increase, then wire will start burning. So to prevent major accident happening in your classroom program, you should consider the perfect wire sizes for the robotics and like STEM classes in your school. So what we do have apart from the electrical wire is the battery system, and you should take care of these things because battery is a very much important aspect in robotics. Which battery and why to use the battery on first hand, we have to discuss on that first. So why we are going to utilize the battery? Because battery is the electronic device which can able to store the energy, like we do get power from the conventional source, right? We get power from the conventional source, that is, and what are the conventional source? The power plant, based on coal or reactor, as well as we do have hydropower plant, the electricity generated by the water application of water pressure itself. So these are the conventional sources from which we are getting the electricity from. And similarly, we cannot able to like maintain the integrity of conventional sources, because sometimes something happens in the power plant or the grid itself down for the maintenance, they cut off the power coming from the conventional source. So to reutilize the power in the desired time on a specific time when we do not have access to the conventional source, what we are going to do is to utilize the batteries. And the best battery we can utilize in the robotics and STEM journey is kind of Li-ion battery. And most suitable battery you can find in the internet as well as in market is 18650. You should note down this battery. Power plant provide AC power, battery provide DC power. Those are the different concept. If I discuss the electricity in details, then I will love to explain my engineering knowledge on that. We do have a star and delta connections, and through the power plant we do get the star and it converts to the delta, and then further transformer reduces the delta voltage to 220 volt, and further 220 volt being converted to 12 volt using the adapter. So there is no need on that to discuss in details, like I mentioned earlier, because we are discussing only about STEM robotics and all. But if we go through the research level of discussion, then it will be less time to mention each and everything in the classroom program itself. So yes, power plant provide the AC power, batteries does have the DC power. We have to understand why we do have AC power, why we do have DC power. To make the electricity flow from one point to the maximum possible range, we cannot able to transfer the electricity through wires, because the wire itself will create a huge loss because of the resistance, because of the diameter, and so because R is proportional to rho L upon A, right? Resistance is like proportional to rho material of the wire, the length of the wire, as well as it is inversely proportional to the cross sectional area of the wire. And I do not want to discuss that in these classes because it will create a great confusion in the mind of the teacher here. So basically what I'm trying to say, AC does require, why the reason why we need AC in our life, because we have to send the power from our plant to our home, which is located kilometers, like thousands of kilometers far away from our home. So to make the electricity travel from this much far, we cannot able to accomplish it using the DC power sources or direct current power sources. We can only able to do this using the AC voltage and alternating current. And that is only because if you look closely into the graph of AC, it is always changing its polarity, right? But on other hand, if you look into the graph of DC current, we can see a smooth line or the flat line perpendicular or parallel to the X plane. And this one is X and this one is Y, this one is X dash and this one is Y dash. So if we look closely, in both of the comparison, the AC and the DC always stays constant throughout the flow, right? And it does have two of the polarity, that is positive and negative, but AC do not have any specific polarity. We call it as live wire or neutral wire or earth wire. But the in live wire itself, it does have some of the frequency like 50 hertz and so on. In India, we utilize the 50 hertz power fluctuation. That means it will regenerate itself at the constant frequency of 50 hertz. That is the main reason, and we cannot able to like transfer the electricity using the DC method from larger spaces like thousand of kilometers or hundred of kilometers through the conventional power sources. That is why the Nikola Tesla already invented this system for us to have electricity in our home coming from the power plant. So let's focus on the battery. We won't discuss that much in details. So battery is important to store the energy for later use. That is the main reason we do have batteries. And also we are utilizing the batteries for those devices which we cannot able to keep charge, or um, we can say on-go devices, on-go e-gadgets, or on-go devices like the smartwatch and mobile phone, and so many devices are there which requires the power, and throughout the journey we cannot able to charge back again because we will not have the access to conventional power source. And that is why we need some kind of storage device to keep that charge for a point of time to utilize in required period of time. So we do have batteries, and the most preferable battery in the robotics is Li ion battery, and the model number, you can note down, the model number is 18650, and that is the commonly used Li ion battery throughout the robotics journey. So this battery does have the potential of 3.7 volt, and I won't discuss the I value, like the current value of this battery, because I'm going to explain something else and more advanced to the current value in my future classes. So be have some patience over that. So now what we do have 3.7 volt of each battery. So combining this battery like 3.7 volt plus 3.7 volt will give you the voltage output of 7.2 volt, which is not the required value for any microcontroller. So again, to stable the voltage of 7.2 volt, we can utilize 7805 volt CV regulator to convert it to 5 volt, and then we can able to uh, utilize the voltage like the 5 volt coming from the battery side itself. That is the reason I explained you the concept of transistors, and through the transistor we can combination of these electronic devices components, we can able to achieve our goal without any problem. And that is why the basic understanding of electronic component is important for each and every teachers out there. So I hope I made my point clear on battery itself and why we need to have the battery to store the power in the electrical circuit to power up our robotics devices. Apart from the battery, we do have two more devices to discuss about. First one is the relay, and these things which I'm showing you in here in the LMS portal is the summarized version of what you are going to have in your actual LMS portal. You will have plentiful of photographs, animations to describe each and everything. So that is why the LMS or Resourceify is popular in the Exceed's point of view. So on other hand, what we do have is the relay module. So first understand the application, why we need relay in our life. So suppose we build some of the home automation device in our robotics classes, and that home automation device can be controlled using our mobile phone. So whenever I click one of the button on a screen, like to turn on and off the device, then what will happen? It will start generating the output signal. Yes. So it will start generating the output signal to control the output devices. But the microcontroller works on 5 volts. So maximum output will be 5 volt only from the microcontroller. So what we need to have? We need to have a device which will take our 5 volt or say 12 volt and convert it to the 220 volt. Then only we can able to control our appliances in our home using the smart home automation device or home automation project or something else, like whatever you do have idea about, you can able to build those. So relay is actually a switch. Relay is actually a switch which operates on the voltage of 5 volt, 12 volt to further, because relay, we can able to say the two switch in parallel, in which first we will apply the 5 volt 12 volt to activate and deactivate the first part, then it will help the second part to channelize the 220 volt output. So it divided in two of the half. One half is the magnetic one, and I will show it using some of the animations in my future classes as well, when we do have when we will do the project related to relay as well. So using the relay, we can able to switch the voltage or control the electronic appliances in our home. That is the major reason we do have the relay modules in the robotics itself, because sometimes we have to control the DC motor, or I'm talking about that DC motor which runs on more power outage, more than the 12 volt. And sometimes we have to control the AC appliances which runs on 220 volt or in between 230 or 240 voltage. So the things we only able to control using this relay module along with our microcontroller in the project itself. And that is why relay module is so much important for the robotics application. And last but not the least, what we do have is the motor itself. And you will know why we need motor in our robotics devices. As I mentioned, robotics structure does require three of the things. First one is the input, second one is the brain of robotics system, and third one is the output device, right? So output can only be not only be measured in the terms of locomotion. As I mentioned earlier, locomotion and actuation is the basic output from the robotics body, but it is not limited to the output. We can also have different kind of output in form of light by utilizing the LEDs in between. And also we can also generate some of the outputs to generate some of the sound waves. In this case, we can able to utilize buzzer. Buzzer comes in various potential potential specification. It comes in 5 volt, it comes under 12 volt. There are many type of buzzer present in the market, so I will prefer you to use the 5 volt one or 12 volt one. And if you want to go beyond the 12 volt, so utilize the relay module in between to generate the output accordingly. Otherwise, it does have some of the electromagnetic kind of stuff inside and two coil type of arrangement. Then uh, what will what will happen to the microcontroller? The microcontroller is not designed to absorb the return potential. Maybe you already heard this term before, returns potential or reverse polarity. Reverse potential, we call it is often. So reverse potential means whenever we try to charge up the electromagnet, so it also induces some of the EMF or electromagnetic potential or EMP or electromagnetic force to the microcontroller itself, to reduce the damage coming from the coil kind of arrangement or like the electromagnet or the relay module. We should utilize the uh, other devices to power up the things, like the 5 volt relay module will be suitable to switch up the voltage to 24 volt or 12 volt. So then only we can able to save our microcontroller from the reverse EMF. So reverse EMF. So here we do have another example of output, but apart from this, the major application of output in robotic system, there are some relay boards that are fit on top of Arduino to enable the control of circuit with Hogger voltage or current, including some type of motor. Yes, there are varieties of modules, there are varieties of sensors present in the market, there are different things present in the market. But let me tell you why I'm keep enforcing you to utilize the electronic components and build something out of nothing, like the scratch stuff, the simple electronic component, because you should not as a teacher, you should not rely on the things present in the market, because you are working in the STEM and robotics field. That is only a place for the innovation rather than utilizing the pre-built things by the manufacturers. Do the research work, utilize the component, and come up with your idea to fix something if anything happens wrong. Otherwise, what will happen? If you try to utilize some of the relay boards present in the market at some point of time, like you are presenting your school in one of the bigger platform, and you are facing a problem to control certain electronic parts or electronic sensors or the output device, then what will happen? You will again go to the Google and search out the thing, right? And you will become the machine like the manufacturers want you to become. That is why I request you all to focus more on the conventional method as a teacher, because you are as a working as a teacher, not the decision maker, or not the company employee, right? You are all a good teacher out there, so you should experiment with these things, these small things, to make you stronger and develop best core values inside of you, so that you can come up with these solutions as well. If you are going to be dependent on the kits or the Arduino modules, like the GSM module, GPS module. That's the reason they manufactured each and everything to sell it on the market, right? And if you be dependent on those stuff, then you will feel very limited to your knowledge. You will not able to explore beyond certain limitations. So you should focus on these things. Fail at once, fail at twice, fail in this twice or thousand times. There is no issue on that as a teacher or the learning person. It is not bad thing for all of us. We all make mistakes. We all fail in some point of time. So the major thing you should do, you do continue doing the experiment throughout. That is the reason I'm not mentioning any of the Arduino modules or the board. Otherwise, you do have the YouTube. You can also find different tutorials to utilize each and every modules. There is no need to invest time in this classroom program, right? I'm not saying that on a serious note. I'm just saying it casually. Sorry for that. So motors is all about like to produce the actuation and locomotion in the robotics body itself. So motors actually converts the electrical energy to mechanical energy to achieve certain kind of motion. And the major type of motion can be generated using the motor is the circular motion. And through the circular motion we can able to build some of the build good mechanism in Tinkercad platform and other platform to and 3D print those mechanism to transfer or convert this circular type of motion to achieve linear motion. And the conversion of these motion, which is important for the board members for the ICSC and CBSC, as you do have different things to cover in the robotics and AI journey. So we will learn that in our further classes as well. To convert these, if we are trying to convert these circular motion to the linear motion, we call that thing as translatory motion. So translatory motion or translation of motion is all about converting one type of motion into another type of motion. So using the motor itself, we can only able to produce the circular motion, and circular motion will either on clockwise direction and or in counterclockwise direction. And I believe you all know the clockwise and counterclockwise direction. What is all about clockwise and counterclockwise? So clockwise is something the the direction in which our hand or minute thing rotate in the clock itself, and counterclockwise is the opposite to the rotation of our hand, minute, and hour dial in the clock itself. So through motor we can only able to generate the circular motion, and there is various kind of motor present in the market. So synchronous motor or AC, inductance motor, brushless permanent magnet motor, and stepper motor, DC motors, switch reluctance motor. So in our robotics project, we are going to utilize first is the servo motors. Second will be the stepper motors. And third DC motor, or we can call it as BODC motors. And BODC stands for battery operated DC motors. And why battery operated? Because these motors, the BO motors, runs on very low voltage, that is 12 volt, or even though it can able to run at 5 volts. So this will be suitable for our microcontroller application. So we are going to utilize these three kind of motors. But apart, in our last session, we are going to explore further possibility of BLDC motor as well. And BLDC motors is nothing but brushless DC motor. So I will give a complete theory on those things as well in our practical project session. So brushless DC motor we are going to utilize, and the reason why we need to have the motors in our project is only to generate motion. Okay, so that our robotics body or the stem part can able to move from one place to another. That is the main reason we are going to utilize the motors in our project. So okay, great. So now what we do have, I hope each and everyone understood the concept of basic electronic components. So help me with your doubt. If you do have any of the doubt, then please help me with the question. Then we'll further explore the sensor part in today's classroom program. So anyone do have any doubts about electronic components and all? Can we test different wire diameter in the Tinkercad app? No, we cannot able to do that in Tinkercad app, as per my knowledge, because I never tasted that. Maybe I'm wrong in this, but let me check out once and I will come back to you. Mamit Shukla, sir. Yeah, sure. Anyone do have any other questions? So in Tinkercad platform, basically that is only for the simulation stuff. Even though that platform will give you the result like you connected 3 or 4 things and it is working fine, means that does not mean it will work fine in the live scenario. So you have to consider your core knowledge as well as the combination of thing you are utilizing in Tinkercad. So that's only for the reference purpose. Nothing is 100% accurate in this world. Everything do have flaws in it. So anyone else, any doubts in the basic electronic component for now? No? Shall we proceed ahead? Thanks. So what is a sensor? So whenever this particular term um, comes up in our like day-to-day life, like what is sensors and how to utilize these sensors. In robotics, you already heard of this term before, right? In robotics, many of you heard the term before. So Amin's officer said sensors can detect various things for our circuit and can be like our eye, ears, temperature sensing, touch sensing. Wow, that's great answer, sir. Thank you so much for your answer. So as again, I'm going to correlate with the same thing I mentioned earlier. In robotics, what we do have is the three basic core things, right? First one is the input device. Second one is the brain. And using these comparison in front of students will help them understand each and everything in very precise manner. That is why I'm keep mentioning these three terms in front of you. So input device is nothing, but it is all about the sensors. Input device which can able to gather the data from the environment and help the brain to understand the environment in very precise manner. Sensor is used to collect the data from the outside world and help the brain, like the microcontroller itself, to understand their environment. And further, through the programming, we already place some of the programming, so a piece of instruction inside the brain, right? So through that programming, the brain can able to operate the output device based on the inputs of sensors in the robotic structure. So we do have, yeah, sorry. So we do have various kind of sensors present in the market as well as for our robotics application. Some of them are mentioned in here, like the humidity, smoke sensor, color sensor, touch sensor, ultrasonic, the infrared one, accelerometer, and temperature sensor. So these are the basic sensors which we do see in our day-to-day life, as well as you do have examples of these sensors nearby you as well. So like the touch sensor, you do have those touch sensor in your mobile phone screen, mobile screen. Each and every person do have the mobile phone or the smartphone. And in the smartphone, we do have the touch sensor, and touch comes in two variety. One is the resistive type, and second one is the capacitive type. So I will explain these two terms in the prior chapter, but for now let's move on to the other sensor. Color sensor is used to identify the different color present in front of the robotics structure. And why we need color sensors? Because in many industry there is like box kind of stuff, box or at different color coding, and different color codings are placed in the box. So what it will do, the separator will like the sensor will detect the color of each and every box in the queue, and then further process it to move either way, either in direction A or in the direction of B. Through that automation, uh, to achieve these kind of automation, we need color sensor, as well as to identify different colors in the environment, we need the color sensor. And why the smoke? The smoke is the disastrous stuff to hear from any place or any people, right? Because smoke correlates the fire, incident of fire or something like that. So to detect these kind of stuff, fire or the smoke, we do have specific sensors, and individually to detect the fire and the smoke. One sensor can able to detect the presence of fire, and another one can able to detect the presence of smoke. Apart from this, what we do have humidity. And let me tell you one specific thing about humidity is humidity is all about the, anyone do have any idea what is humidity? And in one line or in one paragraph, let's find out who do have answer in that. So anyone, sir and ma'am, from your side, I love to see your interaction throughout the classes. That is the major reason to have this session, right? Yes, Amin's officer, you are absolutely right. Water in air. Mohammad Badr Bawani sir also mentioned the same, water in air. But there is yeah, little bit difference. What you are stating in your chat is completely different compared to what actually the humidity is. And yes, Versa Sable ma'am mentioned the moist. Yes, absolutely. You are too close to the answer. Let me answer it up for you. Thanks for your answers. Yes, humidity is all about moisture present in air. Or we can also say that one more chat came, the moisture. PR sir also mentioned the same. Yes, perfect, sir. Moisture or moist, both are the same term. So we can also say that in terms of two more sir answered, right? Amin Sofi sir and Mohammed Badr Bawani sir mentioned water in air. Let me explain it in terms of your answer. So it is all about water molecule in the form of molecule, or we can say that the stable form, like whenever heat is applied, the vapor form, right? The moisture, like the water molecule in vapor form, or we can call it as moisture present in air, or we can call the air is a mixture of water molecule plus different gases plus the particles, the sand particles, and so many things. So air is composed of basically three things: the water, gas, and particles. Gas, what we do have is the nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and nitrogen oxide, like any NO2, NO3. We call it as NOx, sulfur oxides like SOx, SO2, SO3. There are many variety of that. So apart from these, we do have several pollutants in the air itself, but basically the air is composed of three things. First one is the water, second one is the gas, and third one is the particles, like the loose particles or grain particles or pollen grains, and so many things are there. So humidity is all about the content of moisture present in the water. how much amount of water moisture is present in the air itself. And why to gather the information about the humidity condition of environment? Because no, no, sir, no. For that, we can use a gas sensor. No, we cannot able to use cannot use the gas sensor, because gas sensor is only preferred to detect certain kind of gases. Like if you have to detect the CO2, there is one of the type of gas sensor present, and if you have to detect the presence of alcohol or the nitrogen or the sulfur oxide, then there is other type of gas sensor present in the market itself. So for humidity, we do have one of the sensor which I will show you in below slide, and the name of that DHT11. So DHT11 is one of the sensors through which we can able to detect the presence of humidity. And why this is important, why we are discussing the humidity in details? Because we are not limiting our student for by saying the words, those words like sustainable development, and we will save our environment, we'll do this stuff, we will do that stuff. No. So the humidity is responsible for the food processing industry to because of the humidity presence, the food get like food rot itself, right? Food rot itself, or through a span of time, it decomposes. It start to decompose at certain point of time. So to reduce the rotting of the foods and other things related to it, we can able to control the atmosphere humidity inside the storage. And where the storage is, the cold storage for food application and so many things. To predict the weather also, we can able to utilize the humidity sensor. Yes, Ramin's officer mentioned humidity affects how hot we perceive the weather. In similar temperature, in dry weather seem less hot compared for humid weather for some temperature for humans. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So that also, even though if we try to make some of the home automation device, then we can also able to implement the humidity sensor in there to operate the ACs or the appliances when it is required. Not every time, whenever we need them. Whenever it is required, it will automatically turn itself on, and when it reaches certain level, it will turn it automatically itself off. So that is the reason why we need to have the humidity sensor. And same goes with the temperature sensor, is to take the reading of temperatures in our environment. And accelerometer, you've seen some of the application of accelerometer, and that is also, if you do have a mobile phone with you, then I preferably say, like, have you ever played any game in your mobile phone? The gesture control type of games like asphalt or the car racing or something like that? No. Okay, fine. So why we need to have the accelerometer is because to find out the exact acceleration of the device itself. So we can able to predict how much fast our body is traveling in the space, and so that we can able to control the motion, because acceleration is all about increase in velocity, right? Or we can say that not increase, but increase as well as decrease in velocity, because we do have acceleration and deceleration as well. So we can say that acceleration is all about change in velocity, or the rate of change of velocity, rate of change of velocity. Yes, Mohammed Badar Badwani sir said asphalt. Uber and other use it to detect how the taxi is going, doing its speed acceleration. It is, yes, that's a perfect example, sir. Thank you so much. So using the accelerometer, we can able to find out how much the value of change in velocity is happening throughout the span of time. And why we need to calculate the change in velocity? Because if we recall some of the concept from the force, like the momentum and the momentum is all about mass into velocity. So the higher the mass, the higher the velocity, means it will create more impact after colliding with any of the surface. So you don't want to make certain robot and you just ideally give them the speed of like 1200 kilometers per hour or 1300 kilometers per hour, but you also take the consideration of the mathematical calculation while building any of the project. Otherwise what will happen, you will create this much size of robot, and this much robot does have a very high speed by a very high cruising speed, then it will create a great impact and become the weapon of mass destruction. So you do not want to do that stuff in your classroom program. So make sure to come up with the exact value in respect of force, momentum, and all the things while designing any of the high racing cars or remote controlled cars in your classroom program with the help of a student. So accelerometer is all about rate of change in velocity to find out the acceleration of the object itself. And infrared, as we all seen the application of infrared device in different platforms, like the television you do have in your home, it is always supported. Earlier it was supported earlier using a remote, right? Remote in which one LED was pointed on top of it. So whenever we try to press some of the buttons, then what happens, the LED lit up and it informs the controller of TV that this button is pressed, and further the television set, it changes the channel or increases the volume and turn on and off itself. So those were the technology. So infrared technology is sensor is all about the previous method of utilizing, like sending the data from one place to another. But in STEM and robotics, we do have wide range of uses for these sensors, because we are going to idealize and build a small prototype for our application. So we don't require bulkier object or like the higher method of communication like the radars and so many things. So we can able to achieve those using the infrared sensors as well in our robotics journey. So I hope the need of sensors in robotics is clearly understandable to all of you. Let me give you some similarities between the different things we do have in our body compared to the robotics, because we always try to build some of the device which is similar to our body, so that we can able to like correlate each and everything with the robotic system itself. So we do have the sight, we do have is the sight, like the eyes to have the visual perception for our environment. In robotics we do have CMOS image sensor, or we call it camera in general terms. So camera does have CMOS sensor inside, which detects the presence of any body in front of it, or basically it processes the visual data to the sends the visual data to the microcontroller to further process and generate the output. As we do have a body balance system, one of the thing just below our brain to help us maintain the body balance, and it will also be your portion of your assignment, which specific part in our body helps us to balance ourselves. So in robotics, what we do have is the inertial system, and inertial system is composed of two of these sensors. First one is the gyro, and second one is the accelerometer. So gyro gives the value of x, y, and z coordinates, and accelerometer gives the value of like what is the change of speed, right? As I already mentioned earlier, change in speed. So gyroscope gives the space location, the location of the object in space, and accelerometer gives the value, give the data about how much speed it is traveling with. So inertial system allow combination of gyro and acceleration, which gives the proper stability and information to stable the robotics body in a space. So audio, like we do have ears to have, let us have the sound perception or sound waves. We can able to hear the sound waves from the ear itself. In the robotics body, we do have microphones, and like the similar thing we do have in our computer systems, right? So microphones is one of the great device to capture the sound waves, and further it helps the brain of robotics as well as our, not our, a brain of robotics to decide what to do at on some particular sound, input of some particular sound. So there is two type of microphones which I will discuss in details in further chapter. What we do have next is the fluid. So we do have arteries and veins in our body to pump the fluid in both of the direction, to and fro, right? So in robotics we do have micro pumps or biochips to replicate the same motion, ultrasonic like a lidar shown in the robot photo above on the head, like I once sending the ultrasonic signal. Yeah, the ultrasonic sensor. Yes, I will discuss that in detail, sir. Absolutely correct. So apart from this, what we do have is the RF communication. So RF communication is all about radio frequency communication, and this is the older method in the robotics itself. But now we do have many advanced kind of communication method in robotics. The RF stands for the radio frequency, and through like the FM waves, the AM waves, we can also utilize the radio frequency to communicate with the devices. Like the simpler example I can give you for the RF is the your keychain of your car. Keychain of your car through which you unlock and lock your car doors and the whole system. That is the radio frequency based, and that is hackable too. So we utilize the same thing, can lead you to like share the data with the opponent one, but we will use some secure method of communication in robotics to reduce the intrusion in our system. So we will utilize the infrared communication apart from the radio wave. We will also see some of the example in which we will utilize the RF communication, but apart from the RF, we will explore infrared, the Bluetooth communication, and Wi-Fi communication. And also, if I will get time to showcase some of the project in which a Li-Fi can be utilized, or I will help you build one project related to Li-Fi, which I already built for my robotics project, then it will be great learning session for you as a STEM educator to help your student understand the concept of data transmission using these four main methods. And apart from these 4+1 RF5 methods, we do have wired system to control the object using the wire connections, normal virtual wire, not normal wires. We can also utilize. So for Ismail, we do have nose. In robotics, we do have different sensors to identify different gases present in the atmosphere. And to focus, we do have uh, the retina and the muscles surrounding it, right? So muscles surrounding the retina helps us to focus and adjust the distance between the lens and the retina itself, like the backside of the our eyes. So it helps the adjust the distance, and through that adjustment we can able to focus on individual stuff present in front of us. So in robotics body, along with the CMOS sensors, we do have arrangement of motors which further increases or reduces the distance between CMOS sensor and the lens. So these can be utilized or known as autofocus device, or we do have the zooming capability in camera itself because of these system, the attachment of motors, the not the normal motors but the stepper motors. And why we are using the stepper motors, I will explain you that as well. So motors are responsible to adjust the distance between the lens and the CMOS sensor. So further it can able to help us achieve the autofocus in the robotic system, so that we can able to focus on single point of place. So like we do have taste bud. So in robotics we do have humidity sensor, we can call it as taste bud. But apart from the humidity sensor, we do have taste sensor to identify different chemical presence in the in the robotics body itself. I will explain you certain with the example itself for the taste bud and all. So that, and we are not going to utilize the taste sensor in this because it is very costly to use and it is not good for the STEM and robotics classes to utilize the same. But yes, if you can add these sensors as well in your classes, then it will be great advantage in explaining some of the science project and chemicals around you. So speech, for speech, what we do have is our mouth, and through my mouth I'm only speaking out every emotions, every knowledge I do have. So similarly in robotics, what we do have is the micro speakers. Apart from the micro speakers, I already mentioned one of the sound generating stuff, that is the buzzer, which also we are going to utilize in some of our project. So these things combinedly or independently can generate the sound waves to alert the user in front of it, and also to provide certain kind of output. And also what we do have is the pressure sensor and touch sensor. So like in our body, each and every skin is apart from detecting the touch sensing ability, the pressure can also be evaluated by the same, and also the bone and combination of muscles in our body help us to identify the same, the pressure exerted on our body. Similarly in robotics, what we do have is the pressure sensor, and through the pressure sensor we can able to utilize the application of pressure coming to the robotics body. Like if we send some of the robotic body in outer space, like we send Chandrayaan 3, so compared to the earth atmosphere, we are putting it under more pressure compared to the, okay, the in there is less pressure because there is no atmosphere in the moon itself. And in inside earth we do have one atmospheric pressure. So if we compare the one atmospheric pressure with other like planets in the universe, so we will see there is some of the planets which does have more than one atmospheric pressure. So suppose in future if you plan to send some of your robot to other planets, so you should consider these terms as well, and ensure to provide the pressure sensor in it to um, to accommodate each and everything and find out the exact result. Even though if you are going to explore the depth of the sea, then yes, you need to have the pressure sensor on board to detect the presence of pressure, because as we reach bottom of the surface of any sea ocean, then we will find ourselves more pressurized on that situation, not the normal pressure but the pressure by the fluid system inside the body, water body. So touch sensor, like we do have skins, mobile phones and other devices do have touch sensor, and this is the perfect way to provide the inputs to the robotic system uh, without going through the conventional switch, like the on and off stuff as we were using on our earlier times. We do have simple touch sensor type of switches to like operate the robotics as well as to provide the inputs to the brain. So these are the common example of sensors. Let me show you some of the sensor we are going to utilize throughout the session. And also I request you all, if you can able to grab these sensors from the market, or also you can contact the Axi team for the same, because they do have wide range of sensors, and yeah, also heat and ultraviolet sensor and pH sensor. Yes, I mean, so officer, that's true. We will discuss that as well, but I'm covering most of the important sensors first. Then yes, so for the pH, yes, to detect the good quality of water, the pH sensor is required as well. Apart from the pH sensor, sir, there is one more sensor, the TDS one, turbidity sensor. And through turbidity sensor, we can able to identify what are the dissolved particles, how many of the dissolved particles like part per million are available in the water body. So that thing also we can take consideration of, but for now we will be limited for these sensors, as I have to complete the 10 of the sessions for this thing. And the robotics and STEM is so vast that it cannot be covered in a single day or in a single session, or like in 10 sessions. You require much more sessions for the same to help you understand the limitless possibility of robotics. Excuse me for a minute. Sorry. So what we do have the different pair of sensors. That is the color sensor, alcohol sensor, gas sensor, smoke sensor, thermistor, ultrasonic sensor, IR receiver, water flow sensor, touch IR sensor, humidity sensors, photo transistor, gyro, and soil moisture sensor. These are the common sensors which we can able to utilize in our robotics project. And through the 10 days of 10 days journey in this STEM classes, I will utilize some of the sensors to build the project. So I request you all to gather at least 3 to 4 varieties of sensor. So we'll start with the ultrasonic sensor and soil sensor, then further move on to the humidity sensor and temperature sensor, and also utilize the touch sensor, IR sensor, and PIR sensor. PIR sensor is nothing but passive infrared sensors which can able to detect the movement and in any motion detecting stuff like the cameras and the security cameras and the security alarm. These PIR sensors plays the crucial role. And one more thing we do have is the LDR system in here. So LDR means light dependence register, and it is not the sensor but one of the electronic components which we use as a sensor. So the things you already seen in the daily life, like the street lights works without any automation, right? It automatically turn itself on when the night time comes, and it turn itself off during the daytime. So how the street light achieve that thing? Using this particular component, the electronic component, the LDR itself. So LDR helps the system to understand the incoming light from the environment, and based on that input it decides to turn on the light, the street light itself. So these are the common sensors which we are going to utilize in our classroom program. You can also take this screenshot. Otherwise, you do have the LMS access. And by the time today, it will be uploaded for you to access as well. So now what we do have is the classification of sensors. So I will explain this passive and active type of sensor, and it will be enough for today. And then further we will join again back in our next week classroom program to understand the importance and start our practical classes for the same. So classification of sensor, we can classify the sensor based on two of the things. First is the passive sensor, and second one is the active sensor. You have to understand the difference between the passive and the active ones. Then only you can able to utilize the sensor to the full of the potentials, so that it won't create any problem using those sensors. So passive sensor are those which do not have any of the output system to take the input based on the reflection, based on the reflection of waves, of light, and so many things. So passive sensors are totally dependent from the natural inputs. Natural inputs means, so passive sensor, like one of the sensor, if I give you the example, like the flame sensor we do have, it is only dependent on the value it is receiving from the fire itself. So if there is fire, then only this flame sensor will work. But on other hand, active sensor generates its own output, generates its own output. And why it generates its own outputs? Because suppose if we take the example of IR sensor, which I will show you in a minute, IR sensor does have two of the LEDs. One LED is the white one and another one is the dark one. So what is the role of these LEDs? The white LEDs generates the infrared light. So whenever infrared light being generated, it is traveling limitless, right? So whenever some of the obstacle comes in front of the device, what happens is it reflects back the infrared light. So upon reflection, the dark sensor or the receiver module, receiver stuff in IR sensor receives that and informs the brain that some of the obstacle are there in front of the device. So basically active sensor is generating its own output, and like output in terms of wave, light, and other sounds kind of stuff, so that it can able to reflect back upon reaching the obstacle. And further, the reflection can be captured using the receiver, and further the receiver will send the information to the brain of robotics. So there are two types of sensors, the active ones and the passive ones. Let me show you some of the example so that it will be clear for your understanding how we can able to distinguish. So this one is the different one. So let me show you the example in here. So you can see ultrasonic sensor, right? Ultrasonic sensor is visible to all of you in here. So ultrasonic sensor does have two eye-like structure, right? So one is the transmitter and other one is the receiver. And what it transmits and what it receives is the ultrasonic frequency. Like the bats identifies the obstacle in front of their flying way, right? Front of their way. So through the same concept, the engineers built this device to produce the ultrasonic frequency from the transmitter. And transmitter, when transmits the ultrasonic frequency, it goes on and on for some point of like distance. And then further, upon reflection from the obstacle in front of it, it bounces back and the receiver end receives the same. So receiver ends receives the same, and further it generates the output for the brain of robotic system. Then only brain comes to know that there is some obstacle present in front of the robotics body, and the robotics body need to stop or step down or wait for a while until and unless the obstacle is gone from the way. So apart from this, what we do have, this one is the example of the active sensor, because it is generating its own signal, and upon reflection only it is detecting the same. So this is one of the example of active sensor. And apart from the active sensor, what we do have is the temperature sensor. Let's take the example of temperature sensor. So temperature sensor is not generating anything in here, right? No, none of the temperature is generated by the temperature sensor, but it is totally dependent on how much radiation it is receiving from the environment. So environment like the flame source or fire source or any of the radiation source is responsible to provide the exact data of how much radiation it is receiving. Then further, these kind of sensor informs the brain that I am receiving this much of temperature or this much degree C or this much degree of Fahrenheit. So this is the main reason we will use the active and passive sensor, because some of these passive sensors are mostly required in robotics things, because we do not have proper power generation system in some of the places. So that we will utilize the passive sensor in there and collect the data only from the environment. But on other hand, using the active sensor, we are first throwing out our data to the environment, and then again, upon reflection from the surface or the obstacle, we are actually achieving the result, like something where the brain can able to identify that something is there in front of the device itself. So now let me explain the analog and digital thing, and then we will have the end of this session. So now what we do have, upon you have to wait for the assignment part as well, otherwise I will send it in the group. So if I explain you the two terms using the simple concept you see in your home, you do have switches, right? Let me have 5 minute talk to all of the teachers, and if possible, then please verbally speak out the result which I'm asking, the question, the answer to my question, so that it will be great for me to like summarize this session in a whole journey. So you do have switches in your home, and the major responsibility of switch is to turn on the device and turn off the device, right? So we can say that switches are the digital system. So switches are the digital system. And further, apart from this switch, what we do have is the regulators. Regulator, and where we do have regulators, to control the speed of fan. To control the speed of fan, we do have regulators attached along with the switches in our home. So the major purpose of regulator is to control the speed between on to off. Means either way, if we can say, if we correlate the on and off with numerical value, then we can say off is the zero condition or zero value, and on is the one condition in binary system, right? So digital system is all about 0 and 1, limited to two values, 0 and 1 only, 0 and 1 only. But in analog system, in analog, what we do have, not the fixed value, but a range between 0 and 1, a range between 0 and 1. And through the things, ultrasound sensor digital, possibly output to circuitry, but sent and received signal is analog, I believe. Ultrasonic sensor is digital one. Each and every sensor does have the digital values only. But if we are talking about like the amount of obstacle, like suppose the ultrasonic sensor is generating some of the signals, right? And suppose some obstacle is 1 meter only far away from the ultrasonic sensor, then what is happening? The signal will bounce back so quick, and the threshold based. Yeah, we can say it there. We can say that the threshold based. So ultrasonic sensor like generate the ultrasonic frequency, and the further it will receive it. But here the major thing to consider is the time taken to like go to that surface and come back to the actual place. And also because it is generating the constant signals, the ultrasound frequency, so we can say that it is completely digital. But in terms of analog output in ultrasonic sensor, we can say that it is all because the time taken to bounce back from the place or from the obstacle itself. I will discuss that in details while the time when I will have the projects. uh, the ultrasound sensor, yes, we can say that it is completely digital. But yes, with respect to the time and all, we can say that it is analog. And also it can able to evaluate the exact shape or the size of the obstacle present in front of it. So upon the value of reflection, like how much frequency is getting reflected back from the obstacle, and through that we can able to identify what are the approximate size of the obstacle present in front of it. So let's focus on the analog system first. So analog system is all about the range between 0 and 1. And by the term, by the word range, I only mean it can be possible to have 0 0.1, 0 0.2, 0 0.3, 0 0.4, dot 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 up to 1.0 to the value. So it is not the fixed value. Analog system is not the fixed value. It does have a defined value, but within the range of 0 to 1. On the other hand, we do have digital system. Digital system is fixed to two of the values, that is 0 and 1s. So 0 and 1s, we will only discuss 0 and 1s in digital system, and we will discuss the range between 1 and 0 in analog system. And why we need those things in our robotics, it's tough because sometimes we have to take the measurement of temperature. So temperature is not fixed and it is variable. For example, 0 degree to 100 degree centigrade. So we cannot able to take the reading of temperature using the digital method. So we have to go through the analog. But in other hand, we do have light and or any fan. We only need to turn itself on and off, right? So to turn itself on and on, only the digital system is required, and through the digital 0 and 1s, we can able to turn on and turn off the device. But whenever we require to have the variable output as well as variable inputs between 0 and 1, we will utilize the analog system. Yes, Josie sir, you said right, continuous value in analog system. Continuous value, or preferably we can say that it is not continuous, but average value of all of the thing, average value between 0 and 1s. If we take this summary, we can summarize the whole day temperature. It is average of 27 degrees C, but lower temperature is 25 and higher temperature is 30 degrees C. So we can able to calculate and to convert the analog to digital, because we cannot able to generate some of the digital outputs, analog outputs. Then what we will do, we will use the ADC concept in programming, that is analog to digital converter in our programming to accomplish the exact programming method in the IDE itself. IDE means Arduino IDE or any other platform. Even though the Python, we can able to utilize the same. So the time when you will utilize the Raspberry Pi system to implement the ROS, robotic operating system, and you will operate some of the robotics by body, then only this thing will come into play. But for the smaller project, I believe ADC will only be enough to use with Arduino system or microbit system. We'll explain that, we'll see that in our later chapter as well. So for now, it is enough enough of these things to have it. And the different sensor which I already mentioned to you, apart from the things I mentioned, it does have more sensors like the tilt sensor, which is also very important for you to understand, as well as the gyro. We will explain the gyro. You can see some of the examples of temperature sensor is mentioned in your LMS portal, and also you can access the same, like the numbers and the specific models are there in the LMS portal. So you will get digital signals. Fatima ma'am, yes, digital signals are discrete. Yes, absolutely true, we can say that. So you will find several examples of different temperature sensors, and you can also able to buy those things. And if you do have those things with you, then it is very perfect in all of the senses. Then only you can able to cope up with the class programming and all. And we will start with the basic programming, and then further involve ourselves in such a higher extent in which we will utilize our imagination. So each and every person will do the project with respect to their ideas and their thing, and I will be the one who will help them throughout this journey to like go for the practical work and explore. If you love to damage the object, then do the same and learn more on that. Then only you can able to become the greatest teacher around the world. So the proximity sensor is one of the low range IR sensor, we can say. So it can only able to detect some of the low range approximations. Like it can only also used in parking sensors, industrial alignments, and ground proximity in aircraft to detect the distance between the aircraft and the surface. So as I mentioned earlier, IR sensor does have two of the LEDs, and you can see one is in white transparent and another one is blue transparent. So the white transparent is responsible to generate the infrared light, and the blue transparent is responsible to receive that infrared radiation coming from the reflection from the surface itself. So this is how the IR sensor is oriented, and at the end, always we find three basic pins in any of the sensor we are going to use. First one will be the positive, second one will be the negative, and third one will be the digital. And there may be fourth pin in the sensor itself, that is the analog pin. So one is for digital in output, and the fourth one will be for the analog outputs to generate variable value of data. So ultrasonic sensor already explained to you, two eyes like a structure it does have. One is the transmitter and another one is receiver. Transmitter is responsible to generate the ultrasonic frequency, and receiver is responsible to receive the ultrasonic frequency. Similarly, we do have light sensor, smoke and gas sensor, and the alcohol sensor MQ3, the touch sensor, humidity sensor, as you can see, the humidity sensor, and the tilt sensor. So this is all about sensor and other stuff for today. As we are running out of time for today's classroom program, so I will explain the core concept like the Ohm's law and other things in my next class. So that's it. Are you there still in this meeting?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, sir.
Yeah. So, sir,
So
it took
what we'll do,
actually a
we'll
little
speed
more
up a
time.
little process on that. Our next class will be on next Tuesday, that is 5th. I've already communicated into that group. Okay. And then going forward, what we'll do, we will go for 2 classes per week. One
Yes, sir.
is
Then
in,
only we can able to cope up with the same,
yeah,
sir.
yeah. We are one is in Tuesday, another one is on Friday. This is
That would
already
be
mentioned
perfect.
because of the LMS access and other stuff to settle down. First 2 weeks we have go for the 1 class per week. Then from going forward from next week onwards, 2 classes per week.
Yes.
Okay.
From the
Okay.
next week, we will have another class addition, right, sir? In Tuesday itself.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, perfect, sir. And also help them with the details in the group itself. And I will share the assignment in a little late so that you can also complete the assignment. And there is no need to share the question over the group, because in LMS, you will find the assignment under the day 2 section. So I guess 1 and 2 hour, this section will be reflected in your LMS access as well. So from there also you can able to submit the assignment using the PDF and other Word files. And if in case if you find any difficulties, then please do let me know. I will prepare a brief sheet for your submission so that we can able to track the progress for each and every individual teachers out. So thank you so much, everyone, and thank you so much for your presence and your motivation to continue this journey. And I love to hear from your suggestions and your guidance as well, because some of the teachers are from the very well reputed background, and I love to collaborate with you all in future so that we can build one great system out there to let the people learn from us and share the knowledge who requires them the most. Thank you so much, and have a good day, ma'am and sirs. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.